The educational gap is a very controversial issue, and it is closely related to learning and opportunity gaps. The term itself refers to the inequality distribution of opportunities and resources to study, as well as inequality distribution of educational results and benefits. A good example of this could be the disparate opportunities that a student that comes from a higher income family could have against one that comes from a lower income family. Also, these problems could be present when there are differences related to male and female students. And nowadays, Middle East is fighting against this kind of difficulties because of the problems with gender inequality, the grave humanitarian crisis involving conflict-affected countries and its neighbors, and the weak educational system that it has.
The Arab world is among the most unequal regions in the world when it comes to gender and education, according to a report from UNESCO. It is estimated that nearly 4.5 million children in the Arab world aren't in school. About 87% of them live in conflicted affected countries like Syria, Iraq, Sudan, and another 2.9 million young people don't have access to secondary schools. In this region, gender disparity in education reflects common issues facing most developing countries, like poverty, conflict, discrimination, and geography, where rural populations are more likely to be out of school. The education crisis is affecting young Arab children and adolescents. An alarming number of these out of school children must work to provide an ingress for their families. Many of them are being forced in the worst form of labor, including the smuggling of goods and sexual exploitation. Also, girls are getting married early to minimize risk of wider assault and to reduce the charge on their families. Sadly, some of the most vulnerable children and youth are being recruited as workers and combatants in armed groups. Conflict is not the only barrier to education in the Arab world. Arab children's gender and family income remain strong indicators of whether they have access to quality education or not. Educational barriers tend to be a major problem for girls. Despite progress in some Arab countries like Morocco and Egypt, gender disparities remain particularly significant in Djibouti, Sudan, and Yemen. In this graph, we can see the big gap between women and men in education in the Middle East. This graph demonstrates us that women in the Arab region are on average more disadvantaged economically, politically, and socially than are women in other regions.
It is a fact that the Arab world is facing a learning crisis, where more than half of the region's children and youth who are in the school are failing to learn. This can be seen by literacy and numeracy scores on international tests, like the one shown before. There are several factors that lead to educational inequality. While the religion of Islam advocates for equality between male and females, many principles of the Middle Eastern ideology preach otherwise. One of the most important is the culture. The Middle Eastern culture is highly patriarchal, meaning that males hold the power and take all the important positions. They are not only the main figure in social and political environments, but also in the family. This has led to a lot of discrimination against women. Women are mistreated and they are expected to obey their husbands and other male relatives at the time. Because of this, women are forced to stay home and they are not allowed to go to school to study. Education alone will not reverse the impact of the violence and trauma these children have experienced, but for refugee children, education is a hope for a better life. That is why providing education for this region must become a global priority, so that the young generations of this region can yield a future of hope and prosperity.
One important actor in the Muslim world is King Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud of Saudi Arabia. He is the custodian of the Mecca, the holiest site for Islam. He exerts a lot of influence as he has both political and religious power. He is a conservative and wishes to maintain customs and traditions, some of which may attack women's rights and liberties. Nevertheless, there are some women that are trying to break paradigms and give women their rights. One of them is Manal al Sharif. She has been arrested several times as she was protesting against the laws that prohibit the women to drive. The UN has created a special body that works toward women empowerment. This body, called UN Women, focuses on priority areas that are fundamental to women's equality and that can unlock progress across the board. One of the most important one is education. Customary laws, Islamic laws, important European laws, and reformed versions of Islamic laws affect women in education and social life. Primary school enrollment is high or universal in most MENA countries, and gender gaps in secondary school enrollment have already disappeared in several countries. Women in Middle East and North Africa countries are also more likely to enroll in universities than they were in the past. Many people, especially girls, are still excluded from education, and many more are enrolled in school but learning too little to prepare them for the 21st century job markets.
The quality of the education provided is often low. According to the 2002 Arab Human Development Report, the most worrying aspect of crisis in education is education's inability to provide the requirements for the development of Arab societies. This policy brief offers an overview of education's benefit to women, families, economies, and societies, and highlights the ongoing concerns about education in MENA countries. Education's importance has been emphasized by a number of international conventions, including the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the Program of Action of the 1994 International Conference of Population and Development. The women and girls are huge actors in this gap. As female education rises, fertility, population growth, and infant and child mortality fall and family health improves, as well as increased earning capacity, in turn, has a positive effect on child nutrition. Thereof, educated mothers are more likely to be enrolled in school and to have higher levels of educational attainment, and such be more politically active and better informed about their legal rights and how to exercise them. Women activists, who generally come from the educated segments of society, are challenging the status quo. They are demanding equality in the family and society, and calling out for women's economic, political, and social empowerment. The trend's intensity varies by country, but it is visible even in relatively conservative nations.
In addition to facing political pressure for reform, countries are dealing with economic changes that are creating an impetus for women to become more active outside the home. As the region's cost of living rises rapidly, families are increasingly forced to depend on the additional income that female families members can provide. Women in MENA countries are twice as likely to be literate as men are, and make up 2/3 of the region literate adults. The gender gaps in education vary greatly across countries in the region because they are wider in countries where overall literacy and school enrollment are lower. Education systems also take part in this, and they should be sensitive to the specific needs of girls and women, the curricula and teaching materials, and in the media, which has powerful role in shaping people's knowledge and opinion. In MENA region, often reinforce traditional roles that may deny women opportunities for full and equal participation in society. In the first half of the 90s, Muslim states increased girls' enrollment in primary schools by 2%, a rate 4 times higher than the average rate of school-age girls' enrollment in developing countries. The rise of girl participation in primary schools aimed at whipping the widespread claims that Islamic rules restricted female access to education. In addition, several regimes in the Arab world have stressed the importance to improve females' access to education and attempted to reduce gender gaps at different educational levels. Tunisia stands as an illustrative example of a success policy that has been started in 1956. It aimed at reduce gender gap. The government's liberal policy towards women has influenced women's status in the country and reduced gender inequality in access to education. According to the World Bank, the wider gender gaps across the MENA regions are found in Yemen, Morocco, and Egypt.
He Named Me Malala is a film that presents the life of Malala Yousafzai, a Pakistani female activist that has fought for the girls' rights in Middle East, especially in the area of education. As part of the organization's violent opposition to girls' education, she was shot by a Taliban man, but miraculously, she survived. She has become an inspiration for many girls because she preferred to risk her life than to live a life without her human rights. Throughout the film, you can see what she has done for the cause, like leading a campaign named Malala Fund for girls' education in global matters. We believe that it's great and intelligent that this type of cases are made into film, because through art you can make the message spread through more people and help create greater awareness of the problem.